Hello and welcome to the Florida Cable Telecommunications Association's Capital Dateline. I'm Brad Swanson, your host, and I'm joined today by Jim Saunders, the executive editor of the News Service of Florida. Jim, how you doing today?
Good.
Well, we're at election time, and there's just so much fun going on in the state of Florida. Can't stand it. We're ground zero. Let's start at the federal level, and why don't we start with the Senate elections? What's going on?
Well, the U.S. Senate race is really a high-profile, big race because it could influence who's which party controls the U.S. Senate. But these primaries have kind of become anticlimactic, if you will. Marco Rubio got in late, and the polls are showing him with a large lead over Carlos Baruf, who's a businessman down from Manatee County in the Republican primary. You know, when Marco was thinking about not running, there was a cast of thousands running for that seat, and it was wide open. But he got in and kind of sucked the oxygen out of that primary. Unless something really unexpected happens on Tuesday night, it looks like Marco's going to win that primary. On the Democratic side, Patrick Murphy and Alan Grayson, two congressmen, have been running against each other. There's a third candidate, Pam Keith, but that was also pretty competitive early on, but it appears that Murphy has opened a significant lead in the polls in the primary. And one of the issues that came up during that race that I think really hurt Grayson was there were some allegations by his ex-wife about domestic abuse. And he denies those allegations, but they came up during the Democratic convention. And there were some liberal groups that had been big supporters of Grayson, backed away from him at that point, and also I think kind of took the air out of his campaign a little bit. Again, I think Murphy going into Tuesday night's primary is the favorite in that race. I mean, Grayson does have a lot of grassroots support among progressive, the liberal wing of the party. That's always been his base. So we'll have to see on turnout. I think one instructive thing to look at is that Murphy won't debate him, which it usually indicates that Murphy's probably ahead and doesn't want to expose himself to a debate.
Right. Well, we're going to wait and see on that Senate level race, and the implications there are big. But let's talk about a little more fun, right? Florida is always waiting for a good race, and we've got a ton of them happening right now in this primary season. We're seeing the claws coming out on both sides of the aisle. Let's start down in Miami and work our way north.
Well, legislative races have just turned into silly season. I mean, there's a ton of them, ton of primaries. And there's just a lot of, as you said, the claws that come out. There's just bizarre things happening to a certain extent. But, I mean, we can start in Miami, and there's a Democratic primary in the seat held by Dwight Bullard, whose family's sort of a dynasty down there. His mother was held this Senate seat, and then Dwight Bullard won it. But they redrew the district as part of this massive redistricting process. And he's drawn challengers, including Andrew Corge, whose father is a major Democratic fundraiser. But this race has turned kind of bizarre. Dwight Bullard accused Corge of offering him $25,000 to move out of the race. Anna Rivas Logan, who's a former state rep, got into the primary, made it a three-way primary. And one of the reasons that I think a lot of people thought she was going to run was that now the seat is very Hispanic dominated, and she would be the only Hispanic on the Democratic side. So she got in the race, then she dropped out of the race, and lately she's been making noise about getting back in the race. So there's a lot of cross currents going on in that race, and I think whoever emerges from that Democratic primary is going to be kind of wounded going into the general election. Meanwhile, the Republican candidate in that race is Frank Artillis, who's a state representative. And while that district is Democratic leaning, I think that Artillis is sitting on a pile of cash, and he's going to, whoever emerges from that Democratic primary is going to be, as I said, kind of wounded. I think it gives Artillis a pretty good chance of winning that seat in the general election.
Now wasn't one of those candidates using their last name potentially broadly, if you will?
Well, one of the things that's sort of amusing to me, at least, is that Corge, who is not Hispanic, apparently has been introducing himself as Jorge, and to try to appeal to Hispanic voters in that district. So some of this stuff is a little amusing. So
you never know what's going to connect with voters. So.
well, and Miami-Dade is always amusing to watch.
Right,
So. Right. Another sort of interesting thing down there has gotten a lot of attention is that in the House side, David Rivera, a former State House Appropriations Chairman, Congressman, kind of a colorful, controversial figure, has been close to Marco Rubio over the years, has had a lot of ethics questions about himself over the years, and he's running for a State House seat down there, trying to make a comeback in the legislature, in the State House, and there's a primary. I think there's 4 or 5 Republican candidates in his primary. And the winner of that is, going to be in the general election, trying to succeed Artiles. So, Rivera, particularly in Tallahassee, I think their ears always perk up when David Rivera's name comes up. So.
Well, it should be interesting to see if he's got enough charisma to make it out the other side.
He's raised quite a bit of money,
so charisma, money, they seem to be the same thing in politics.
Well,
sometimes. All right, so let's move a little further north. What are we looking at in the Palm Beach area? What's going on there?
Well, one of the interesting storylines of this thing has been the Schlossberg family. Irv Schlossberg, as a state representative, has put more than $1 million of his own money into a state Senate race. He's trying to unseat Jeff Clemens, who's an incumbent senator in a Palm Beach County district. That district, as always, all Senate districts, has been redrawn. And so Irv has put more than $1 million of his own money into the race. He's a very wealthy man. But meanwhile, his daughter, Emily Schlossberg, is trying to run for his seat. She drew a challenge from Kelly Skidmore, a former State House member. This is all Democratic primaries. It's all family feuds within the Democratic Party in Palm Beach County. But yeah, there's a ton of money flying around down there. And a lot of it from the Schlossberg family. But Clemens actually has been raising money from the outside as well. So, Clemens is he's well known. And he's pretty liberal, and so I think, in some ways he would appeal to a lot of Democrats in that area. But I don't know what the effect of the Schlossberg money is going to be in that Senate race. But we could have 2 Schlossbergs in the legislature. Really after this primary, because those races are decided in primaries.
Certainly we've seen multiple family members in the legislature, but that'll be a new one from Palm Beach County, so we'll stay tuned for that. All right, so let's move north. What's next on the list that you're seeing?
Well, they're a little further north from that, probably one of the nastiest, ugliest Senate races this year has been the Debbie Mayfield, Rich Workman race in Indian River County and part of Brevard County. And both of them are state house members. Mayfield has put hundreds of thousands of dollars of her money into that race. There's been all sorts of back and forth and involvement from outside groups attacking Workman particularly. Workman's a House Rules Chairman. He's got quite a bit of money too. So these guys have been, Workman and Mayfield have been going at each other like crazy. So I think that's another one that everybody's watching on Tuesday night to see. Again, that there is a Democrat in that race, I think, but again, that's a very Republican area. So whoever wins the primary pretty much is the lock for that race.
Right. All right. So we're going to keep moving north. What's next up the coast?
Now you're putting the pressure on me.
Right.
Well, there's another family affair, if we can. I believe it's House District 19, which has not gotten a lot of publicity statewide. But Charles Van Zant is a very conservative member of a rural district. He's represented this rural district 19. He can't run again because of term limits. So his wife is running, Catherine Van Zant. And she is running against Leslie Dewar, who's a former state Republican chair, was close to Governor Scott, was his Republican chair. She got displaced by Blaise Ngolia, who is a state representative, so there's all sorts of cross currents. Right. And there's another guy in that race named Bobby Payne out of Palatka, who has a lot of support from the business community. So I think that's sort of one of those race that's not getting a lot of attention, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. That's a very rural area. It's Putnam County and Bradford County, Clay County, that sort of area. And but it's actually a pretty interesting race to watch. Again, not getting a lot of attention. Up in Jacksonville, there's a ton of races. One of which is sort of going to be interesting to watch is that Reggie Fullwood, who's running for re-election. He's a Democrat. He's under federal indictment right now, so he's drawn some Democratic challengers in his district. He's a very successful politician in Jacksonville. Served on the city council there, has been in the legislature for a while. So, he has a lot of name ID. But also in Jacksonville, there's a heated race between former Representative Dick Kravitz and Jason Fisher, who's a school board member over there in Duval County. That one's getting a lot of attention over there too. So there's quite a bit going on in Duval.
All right. Well, I tell you what, there's probably another 20 races we could take a deep dive on and really enjoy talking about the dynamics. Right. But I think that's all the time we have for now. Jim, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us the latest in what's happening in Florida politics. So for news and advances and politics and opinion, go to the Advances site on our website at CapitolDatelineOnline.com or check us out on our Facebook page. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in.